Welcome to another edition of Baseball for Maniacs. Oh, and we're almost at spring training time, but we're at that glorious time right before where we get to honor some of the guys that we watched growing up. It's Hall of Fame season. We've seen that just passed through. We saw two guys from our childhood get in, and it's so rightfully deserved for those guys. Those guys being Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones. But there's a lot of names that might be left off, a lot of names that probably you think should have gotten in, but let's just go over these rules real quick and explain just in case the Hall of Fame isn't in everybody's repertoire.
Yeah. So basically, you have to have played at least 10 MLB seasons and retired for at least 5 calendar years prior to the election. So once you retire, if you are eligible to make the Hall of Fame, you got to wait 5 years. And then writers, it's funny because baseball, the Hall of Fame, it's the highest prestige out of all the major professional sports, to where it's the hardest sport to get into compared to the NFL and the NBA, where they basically let anyone get in the Hall of Fame. Baseball is different in that. And that's why I appreciate it, because if you get in, you're legit a Hall of Famer. So everyone gets their ballot, right? All the voters, and they can only vote for 10 people max each year. So that also plays into the part where some guys might not get in this year due to the ballot being like pretty good. And then next year, if there's a bad class, some people might rise up in the voting. So a candidate can stay on the ballot for 10 years, but 10 is the max. So we'll get into the Manny Ramirez one. He didn't make it. He didn't get the 75%. So he's going to be off the ballot. And you have to get 75% of the vote to get in. And you could stay on for 10 years. Now, for a lot of first-time Hall of Fame players, like they're on the ballot for the first time, you have to get at least 5%. And we're going to go over some of the players that this was their first year and they didn't hit that 5% mark. So they're going to be off the ballot. And it can be kind of tough because these are some of your guys' favorite players. These are some of our favorite players. And you want to see them be recognized for what they did in their big league career. But it's like, it just goes back to the point of like how prestige the Hall of Fame is. So when you do get a Hall of Famer, it just makes it that much more better and prestiged. Now, I'm going to kind of go over the players that were on the ballot this year, but they didn't get the 5%. So unfortunately, these people won't be Hall of Famers. And then Ryan, after I list these names, you can kind of give me your quick thoughts on if anyone that didn't make the 5% marker, if you were surprised or not. I'm personally not surprised. So Daniel Murphy, cool. He got no votes. That's what you get for being a Met. Um, Howie Kendrick. I like Howie Kendrick, great guy, but not a Hall of Famer. Gio Gonzalez, absolutely not. Big Gio
No.
Gonzalez fan. If he made the Hall, I probably would quit this podcast right then and there. Nick Markakis, love me some Nick Markakis, not a Hall of Famer.
That one was disappointing to me, though. I wanted to see Nick get a couple of votes. It's disappointing to me.
I think he got one vote because it says 0.2%. So it's like, I guess he had to get one vote. I don't know.
And maybe. I don't know if it works like MVP votes or not.
Yeah. And then Alex Gordon. Love me some Alex Gordon. KC fans. Legit legend. Hall of Famer in the Royals organization. Not in baseball. Rick Porcello. Your guy. Hunter Pence. Love me some Hunter Pence. The legit biggest hype guy. I saw his speech on MLB Posted or whatever, and it was before they went to the wild card game in Pittsburgh, and it was in 2014. I'm like, well, damn, maybe I'm a Giants fan for the day, because the way he spoke to the crowd and got everyone pumped up. And then, of course, Hunter Pence, he spent that year in Philly at the 2011 trade deadline, then got traded the next deadline. Love me some Hunter Pence. Matt Kemp, got an MVP stolen from him from Ryan Braun, because Ryan Braun was on steroids. Shin-Soo Choo, cool guy, cool guy. Edwin Encarnacion, okay. And then Ryan Braun, who I think is going to be the most controversial of the guys that didn't even get the 5%. It's because the Baseball Hall of Fame writers, they do not like steroid users. Me personally, I love them because I think they saved the game. Now, Ryan Braun isn't in that era that I hold so dear, because my steroid guys are Bonds, McGuire, Sosa, to where I think they quite literally saved the game. Ryan Braun just did it in 2011, lied about it, stole an MVP. So I could care less that he's not in. But Ryan, give me your thoughts on the guys that unfortunately will not be on the ballot next year.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you in the sense of like it's not necessarily surprising that these guys didn't get the 5%, but like kind of like with Markakis, some of them not being on the ballot next year is a little bit disappointing to me. Like I said, I would have loved to have seen Markakis get another run at it. I would have loved to have seen Hunter Pence or Matt Kemp get another run at it. Howie would have been cool to see get another attempt in there. But then there are some guys you look at it and you're like, really? They actually like they're being considered like Edwin Encarnacion, for example, big home run guy. I loved he was energy beyond energy. But what exactly did he do except hit home runs? He didn't really do that much. Shin-Soo Choo is another one of those guys where it's like, oh hell yeah, but like really?
Yeah.
But
No,
you
I
know,
got
it's
you.
like, and same thing with Daniel Murphy. He had that really electric postseason run, and then he stole money from Colorado, and then that was pretty much that was pretty much it for him, honestly. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a lot of these guys, like when we get deeper into the list, we'll talk about like why they should be in and why they're still on the ballot for that exact reason. But again, none of these guys are necessarily surprising to me, but I am disappointed to see at least a couple of them not be on the ballot next year.
Yeah, and then let's get into the next list of our guys. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna say the player's name, what percent they got, and then what year they're on the ballot. Kind of give my intake, throw it back to Ryan. It's gonna be kind of rapid fire. But Torrey Hunter, love me some Torrey Hunter. He got 8.7% of the vote, and this is his 6th year on the ballot. So he will be on the ballot next year. I just don't see a world where Torrey Hunter gets in. I love his game, him in Los Angeles, Minnesota, the way he patrolled center field, an absolute dog. Like quite literally almost dying for his teammates against the Red Sox in the ALCS. But it just goes back to the point how prestige the Baseball Hall of Fame is. So not a surprise for me that Torrey Hunter most likely won't get in.
Again, yeah, kind of the same thing. I'd love to see Torrey get in there. He almost caught that ball and almost ruined that Red Sox season. So maybe if he caught that, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. But it's unfortunate that these next couple of years, the Hall of Fame is loaded with a couple of these first ballot guys. Like next year, Buster Posey's getting in to his first ballot. John Lester's going to get votes. Jay Bruce may even get a couple of votes. It's his first time on the ballot next year. But yeah, Torrey Hunter, all time great twin, all-time great defensive outfielder. It's unfortunately just not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, totally agree. And then the next guy, we got Francisco Rodriguez, the closer. And that's another thing about the Baseball Hall of Fame. They just don't value closers to where like you have to be quite literally a top five closer of all time to get in. So he got 11.8% of the vote, and this is his 4th year. So he has 6 more years. It just depends on how, like, when he's in that 9th or 10th year, how strong the ballot is with the other players to where I could see him, like, getting a spike in votes just due to a writer looking like, well, I get it, he's a closer, but he is one of the best of all time. But unfortunately, I don't see Francisco Rodriguez getting into the Hall of Fame.
See, it's that one sucks because I think he absolutely should. This is the only closer in MLB history to have 60 saves in a season. And if that doesn't hold any merit to anybody, you're not a baseball fan. Francisco
Yeah.
Rodriguez deserves to be a Hall of Famer. And I really, really hope that in these 6 years, the writers wake up and they put the man in the Hall.
Yeah, and I just think closers are so undervalued because it's like, I get it. The war is not there because they're only pitching 60 innings out of the year. But what is everyone looking at the trade deadline when they're trying to win a World Series if they don't have it? A legit closer, because it just makes everyone else's job in the 7th and the 8th inning that much easier when you know you have someone in the back end that's going to shut down the door, and then it helps the starting pitching. So I think closers are way too undervalued, but unfortunately, I think that trend's going to continue with Francisco Rodriguez. Next guy, David Wright. So he got 14.8% of the vote, and he's in his 3rd year. So, big Phillies guy. We all know that. I hate the Mets with every fiber of my being, but I love David Wright because so similar to when I talked about Francisco Lindor when I was kind of saying Trey Turner's better, I still really like Francisco Lindor, and I really like David Wright just for what they do to the game because obviously, we're big rivals, right? But my main, I guess not my main goal, but my main want for the sport is to always continue to grow. And David Wright was the guy for so many young Mets fans growing up. People my age, like my guy was Utley or Worth. Their guy was David Wright. And he was just a great guy that his career got cut short by injuries with the back. But I think there's a chance David Wright gets in because he was one of the best third basemen in our era. And dude, he's a dog. Like, so I think it's going to be very close. He's going to definitely be a ninth or 10th year ballot kind of guy. But me personally, I think David Wright's a Hall of Famer.
I 100% agree. I think if it wasn't for his injuries, he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer, being honest. We're going to look at David Wright in the same light that we look at Mike Trout, in the vein of what could they have done if they were completely healthy. Mike Trout really could have gone down as the greatest ball player of all time, and I'm including Shohei Ohtani in that rant. If Mike Trout never got hurt, Mike Trout would be the greatest baseball player to ever touch a diamond. But we'll never know because unfortunately he had to deal with those injuries. And it's the same thing with David Wright. I truly believe David Wright would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer if he didn't get injured. And I don't think he's going to get in 9 or 10. I think he's going to sneak in year probably 5 or year 6 even. David Wright deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. That's Captain America, baby. You need to get him in.
Yeah. And I think we kind of feel the same way that we value peaks more than longevity, but the Hall of Famer ballot, it's the complete other way. And I just think, man, like Jacob DeGrom, right? He's not on this list because he's still playing, but I think what he did in that short period of time, similar to what David Wright did, it needs to be told in the story of the Baseball Hall of Fame. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case. Next guy we got, Omar Vizquel, probably the second or third best defensive shortstop. I always got Ozzie Smith number one. I don't think that's a discussion, but he was in the ninth year of his eligibility. He only got 18.4%. So unfortunately, I don't think our beloved shortstop's going to get in. And I don't necessarily disagree with that just because, of course, great defensive shortstop, top five, no doubt. But he wasn't the greatest hitter. So it's like, I just don't think that's Hall of Fame worthy, in my opinion.
If being flashy with the glove was a Hall of Fame worthy attribute, there'd be a lot more guys, and like Brandon Crawford would be getting Hall of Fame votes, or Andrelton Simmons would be getting. I think his first year on the ballot's coming up actually in a couple of years. Andrelton Simmons, I think 28 is his first year on the ballot, but either way, he's not going to get into the Hall of Fame, and if it was based on his glove, he would be. And yeah, Omar Vizquel, if it wasn't year 9, I think there'd be a chance, but next year's ballot is kind of strong, especially when you're led by Buster Posey. So I think you're right. I don't think he's gonna get in. I'd like to see it, but I don't know, man. I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree totally. Next guy we got Mark Burley in his 6th year on the ballot. He got 20% of the vote. I don't see it. I mean, I love Mark Burley. That play between his legs with the call from the White Sox announcer, I'm botching his name. I don't remember it, but
That's Hawk
we all know who we're
Harrelson,
talking.
baby.
Yes, sir. And it was like that was electric, but and what he did in the 2005 postseason run will never be forgotten on the south side of Chicago. I just don't think his peak was ever Hall of Fame worthy. I think he's a really good starting pitcher, but Hall of Fame, absolutely not.
So the thing is with Mark Burley is that he's gonna be told in the Hall of Fame for years to come anyway because he threw that perfect game. And again, yeah, kind of like you, I never saw it. I don't know why Mark Burley was essentially on the ballot for as long as he's been. I'm happy to see him on there because he was really consistent for his entire career. But does the Hall of Fame value consistency or do they value greatness? And I don't know if Mark Burley ever got into that upper echelon of great during his career. Very, very good, but he didn't get to that great tier.
Yeah. It's funny because you know that Instagram page, the Hall of Pretty Good.
Yeah, dude, I
Um,
love those guys.
Dude, that's incredible. And it's like he's the one guy that's like, because I think the criteria for that is you have to be under a certain amount of WAR. And I think Burley fits into that to where he's over the Hall of Fame are pretty good, but he's not good enough to get in the Hall of Fame. So he's in that like dead zone of the middle, which sucks because he can't get honored either way. But like you said, the perfect game, that's in the Hall of Fame. So he still will get his recognition by the baseball historians. And then the next guy, your beloved guy, Dustin Pedroia, in his 2nd year on the ballot, he got 20.7%. I think Pedroia is a Hall of Famer because we did that episode, Utley versus Pedroia. Of course, I think Utley's better. We got into that. We ride for our guys, but I also said that it was very close. So, and if I think Chase Utley's a no doubt Hall of Famer, I would be lying if I said Dustin Pedroia wasn't. So, and it's only his 2nd year. He already got 20% of the vote, really 21. So I think there's no doubt Dustin Pedroia is going to end up in the Hall of Fame.
Biasly, obviously, I think he should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. And again, it kind of goes back to the David Wright thing. If he never got hurt, maybe there's a world where Dustin Pedroia is a first ballot Hall of Famer. You can make that same argument with Chase, because I said it during the Petey versus Utley video. If Utley's a Hall of Famer, then so is Pedroia. And I agree that Utley's also a Hall of Famer. But in terms of Dustin Pedroia, I think that man would have been the greatest second baseman of all time if he never got hurt, really. You played on a prestigious ball club. You got yourself a couple of rings. You already won yourself an MVP. Who's to say he wouldn't have been a two-time MVP? We saw Altuve win the MVP during that cheat season where he didn't mash 40 home runs. So it's possible to have a high average and 20-something home runs and get the MVP. I think Petey could have easily done that again. And the fact that he was injured and he got robbed of his first ballot Hall of Fame status is criminal to me. Get Petey in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, totally agree. And then on that Jose Altuve point, so I've gotten into with the Astro fans about the whole cheating scandal. Maybe the Dodgers were really the villains after what everything's going on now, but yeah, whatever. But Jose Altuve, like, even with his great season, I still think Judge should have won it. If you look at the stats, the only thing Altuve really had him was batting average. So that's not biased. That's me, one, thinking the other player should have gotten it. And then two, well, he was cheating. Well, everyone says, well, he didn't partake in that. Whatever, dude. He's a cheater. Shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Hope he never gets in. And then the next guy, my beloved Cole Hamels. So, and he got 24% on his first year on the ballot. So I think there's a real chance he gets in. And this might shock you. I don't think Cole Hamels is a Hall of Famer. I think he's definitely a Phillies Hall of Famer. He is a Phillies legend. Quite literally helped us win our World Series in 2008. I love me some Cole. I just don't think his peak was Hall of Fame. And the longevity, like once he left Philly, yeah, he had some good years in Texas, but he kind of like fizzled out to where I don't think he has the peak, and I really don't think he has the longevity. I would not be upset if Cole Hamels got in the Hall of Fame because any Philly in the Hall of Fame, I'm riding for. But I don't want to be too biased, so I just don't think, in my opinion, he's a Hall of Famer. But based on his first year on the ballot, I think there's a real chance he gets in.
Yeah, just based on that, but does it really show the strength of the ballot, or is it really more like does he really deserve all those votes there? Now, again, Cole Hamels was great when he was in Philadelphia. When I was growing up, all I heard was how great this young lefty Cole Hamels was, and he turned out to be as great as he was supposed to be. But was it Hall of Fame great? In my opinion, no. And it's
Mhm.
he's right there. He's right there. Maybe if another title had come their way, I'd be singing a different tune. Maybe if he won a Cy Young, I'd be singing a different tune. Maybe if that no-hitter was a perfect game, I'd be singing a different tune. But either way, speaking of that no-hitter, shout out Odubel Herrera for the greatest worst catch of all time, for the
Oh
greatest
man,
almost error to ever happen.
that's such an Odubel play. Like he was a mess on the field and he was a mess off the field.
Oh
It,
God, I forgot
you
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like not a good guy. And it's so like it's weird because obviously in my opinion, like going off in a tangent, but whatever. When I have a chance to speak about Odubel Herrera, I'll do that. Um it's
He
I
was
believe
your
in second
Johan
chances.
Rojas before Johan Rojas.
Thing is, Johan Rojas didn't beat his wife, but we don't know that. We don't know that. Oh gosh, we're on a tangent. Sorry, guys, but I just don't. I believe in second chances, except for certain things, and domestic violence is not something I think you can ever come back from because I think that's in your nature. So I'm not a big Odubel Herrera guy, but we're not going to get into domestic violence in Major League Baseball history because that we could be talking about that for hours. Bo Bichette's dad, Dante Bichette, one of the worst people in the game of baseball, but we're not going to get into that. Whatever. Next guy, Jimmy Rollins, another Philly, and he got 25% of the vote on the fifth year on the ballot. I'm not going to be biased again. Love me some J Roll. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I think he's a damn good player. Obviously, a Phillies Hall of Famer. I just don't think his peak, like 2007 was great, right? But realistically, Utley would have won that MVP if he didn't miss 30 games. Love me some J Roll. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
This is the first time you and I are going to disagree, actually. I think Jimmy Rollins is a Hall of Famer. And maybe it is just like my bias of watching him when I was a kid and how good he was in Philadelphia. But even when he went to the Dodgers, he was actually really good for those couple of years. We don't have to talk about the White Sox years because he was just old and he was getting hurt a bunch. But the way that J Roll played the game, and it's kind of like how you were talking about the kids who were inspired, like how you had Utley and I had Petey. But at the end of the day, he inspired an entire generation of black athletes, especially in
Yep.
Philadelphia, to pick up a baseball and really try the game out. Easily one of the best switch hitters to ever play the game, in my humble opinion. J. Roll was undeniable with his glove. He was undeniably athletic, and I think he's one of the most underrated shortstops to ever do it. To the point to where he's so underrated that they got you saying that you don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I think if you look at a deep dive in the numbers, J. Roll's a Hall of Famer. I think he needs to get in.
Hey, if he gets in, you're not going to get a peep out of me in frustration. I'm going to be waving down that flag in Cooperstown. And then again, another Philly, Bobby Abreu. Now, here's the thing about Bobby Abreu. I think most of the people watching this don't really know how good he was because he played in like the 2000 era. I think he was with Philly from like 98 to '06 or whatever. Then he went to the Yankees. Bobby Abreu, if you want to learn about having a good hitting approach, just watch what Bobby Abreu did. He was like, he had Bryce Harper's plate discipline, but not the peak of like the power. But Bobby Abreu was a stud. But he got 30% of the vote, and it's his 7th year on the ballot. And this was a relatively weak ballot, in my opinion, to where I just don't see Bobby Abreu getting in. But of course, if he does, I would not be upset.
Bobby had a longevity of being pretty good. So that's why he's still on the ballot for as long as he's been. I remember him as an angel more than anything, if I'm being completely honest. But
Well, that's
Bobby,
when he like during our era, he grew up like in the '09, '08 era. So yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So it would be nice to see Bobby get in, one of those just pure contact hitter guys, great glove in the outfield as well when he was younger. But, I don't see him getting in, man. I don't see it.
Yeah. And then the next guy who quite literally can't get in because this was his final year on the ballot, Manny Ramirez got 38.8% of the vote. And this is just going to go back into the argument of the baseball writers do not want to get steroid users in the game. I think that is a mistake because they quite literally saved the game of baseball. And you can't tell the story of baseball without the 90s and the early 2000s. It's happened. And everyone wants to say, well, they were cheating. Well, you know who else were cheating, Ryan? The damn pitchers. Everyone was on the damn juice. So it kind of evened out the playing field. And I think Manny Ramirez is just a clear Hall of Famer. What he did in Cleveland, like back in the 90s, dude was a stud. Then he went to Boston, absolute stud. Helped them win 2 World Series championships. We get it, the clubhouse nonsense, Manny being Manny, but I think that also plays it to who he was. He was authentic. Manny Ramirez didn't have a fake bone in his body. He did everything Manny way, and I respect that. And then when he went to the Dodgers in 2008, Manny Wood, I'm sure all the Dodgers fans remember that. Dude, he was unreal in that second half into the playoff. We didn't shut him down, but we still won, so we got lucky. But I love Manny Ramirez, and I think growing up, he was one of our idols. Just the way he played the game, hitting a home run in the playoffs, undoing his batting gloves, screaming at Roger Clemens, like that's baseball. And he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. His story is just so, it's very, what's the word, controversial. But dude, he's a Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
See, I think there needs to be a separate category for Hall of Famers in just terms of pure psychoticness of the person. Because Manny Ramirez was a psycho. I loved watching Manny Ramirez play when I was a kid. I cried when he got moved to the Dodgers. I didn't want to see him go. He was one of my favorite players to watch in a Boston uniform. I was a little kid. I didn't understand the business of baseball. I thought Manny just wanted to go. Who knows? Maybe he wanted to be a Red Sox for the rest of his career. But it's like you said, it's the steroids. And yes, I agree with you 100%. The steroid era saved the game of baseball. And if anything, there should be a separate Hall of Fame wing for these steroid guys. If they really don't want to have that prestige of the Hall of Fame tarnished, then have a whole separate wing. Because these guys deserve their recognition because without them, your Hall of Fame doors are probably closed.
Yeah.
But, Manny did everything for the city of Boston. He made baseball fun to watch in Boston. As stupid as some of the decisions he made could have been, not knowing what Manny was going to do next made it even more fun to watch Manny. So yeah, he should have gotten into the Hall of Fame, and I'm very disappointed that I'm not going to see him wearing his Boston cap in Cooperstown.
Yeah, love me some Manny. And then the next guy, similar like situation, Alex Rodriguez got 40% of the vote in his 5th year. Here's my thing. If Barry Bonds isn't getting in the Hall of Fame, Alex Rodriguez isn't getting in the Hall of Fame. And again, I think that's a travesty. A-Rod was so good at baseball. Seattle, Texas. He went to New York, went to go play third base because he didn't want to step on Jeter's shoes. That shows a level of maturity that we don't see to this day in Major League Baseball because Alex Rodriguez was 10 times the defensive shortstop that Derek Jeter was. And
Most
of course, you can
shortstops
get
in
into you
baseball
don't
were, but
really,
continue.
yeah. But Derek Jeter on the defensive side was a nightmare, but we're not going to talk about all his gold gloves that he did not deserve. But I love me some Derek Jeter. He's a clear Hall of Famer. But when you talk about the game of baseball, how on earth can you just like forget about 696 home runs? How can you forget about a multiple time MVP? And I think one of my favorite Alex Rodriguez moments came when he returned to Boston for the first time since the second suspension. And then he got thrown at by Ryan Dempster with his 80 poo. Oh, you're so tough, Ryan Dempster. Throwing at one of the best players of all time with 85. Love me some Ryan Dempster. But it was Joe Girardi's reaction. And I'm not a big Joe Girardi fan. What he did with the Phillies from
You better
2020
not be a
to
Joe
2020.
Girardi fan.
Nah, dude, that guy was a freaking clown. And also not good on television, but this is not a Joe Girardi hate episode. We can do that at a later time. But his reaction that day was phenomenal. That's what you want out of your manager. And then the very next at bat, he sends one to the moon in center field. And it just shows that aura that Alex Rodriguez had. And I just think his talent is undeniable to where if you want your opinion on if Alex Rodriguez should be in the Hall of Fame is based on two things. If you believe guys should get in or they shouldn't. If you don't believe they should get in, obviously Alex Rodriguez is not getting in. But if you do, then Alex Rodriguez is getting in. And I just don't. I hate that that's even a discussion. I think your game should speak for itself, and I think Alex Rodriguez is a clear Hall of Famer.
You kind of took the words out of my mouth with the Barry Bonds thing, and it's kind of a damn shame that it's going to be the exact same thing with Alex Rodriguez. Look, I know he was a Yankee. I know he made life hell for Boston fans, but Alex Rodriguez is a Hall of Famer. Alex Rodriguez was actually almost a Red Sox, if some people would like to remember that before the MLBPA vetoed that trade. We would have never had John Lester, and Manny Ramirez would have been moved to Texas. So there was a lot of pieces that were
Yeah,
moving to get A-Rod to Boston, and it almost happened. But either way, even if he never got caught with steroids, he would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. And the fact that he isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, and then it's just because of the one little thing that 95% of the league was doing at the time, actually pisses me off. Because like it doesn't make it easier to hit the little white ball. It just makes it easier to hit it further. You still have to time up 95. You still have to make sure you're not sawing it off. You still got to make sure you're not jammed. Your timing's got to be there. Your eyes got to be perfect to make sure you're not swinging at junk. And what was Alex Rodriguez really, really good at doing? Not swinging at junk. And it's like you said, he's a multi-time MVP award winner. So is Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds has 7, I think. And A-Rod's got what, 3, 4?
I think it's three. Yeah.
Yeah, so he should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, and so should have Barry Bonds. Alex Rodriguez is a bona fide, sure, no doubt Hall of Famer, and he won't get in because of the steroid stuff. And it genuinely irritates me that all this greatness is being thrown to the side because of something that everybody was doing at the time. It's genuinely
Yeah.
upsetting.
Well, it's just like I think we should do a video just on the entire steroid era and just like how it saved it because it's so like hypocritical. Like they quite literally saved your game. We might not be doing this podcast if steroids weren't in baseball, and then you turn your back on them when it's time to recognize them for what they've done. It's awful.
There's an
Um,
entire event
but
in
the
the
next
All-Star
guy,
game there's an entire event in the All-Star game completely dedicated to steroid use. The home run derby is 100%
yeah.
for guys who did steroids. Get that BS out of here. Honestly, bring steroids back. Like genuinely, I want
Put
multiple
them
50
all on
home
the
runs.
juice.
Multiple 50, 60
Yeah,
home
put
run
them all on the
seasons
juice, dude.
right now.
100%. Next guy, Felix Hernandez, Seattle Mariners legend. He got 46% of the vote on the second year of his ballot. I think King Felix is a clear Hall of Famer, whether he gets in next year or in a couple of years, maybe the 10th year on the ballot. I don't think there's any discussion. He's a clear Hall of Famer.
Yeah, you can honestly just move on to the next guy. The fact that Felix didn't get in this year kind of sucks, but Felix is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Next guy, Andy Pettit. So we got 48.5% of the vote, and he's on his eighth year of the ballot. So Andy Pettit also has the steroid kind of link to him. He has a weird situation because he got busted when he was injured and he was using it to get healthy. Nevertheless, um, I don't think he's going to get in just because he's on his eighth year and he's not even at the 50% mark. But also, I think he was really good, but I don't think he ever hit that peak of a Hall of Fame. I think if the steroids weren't a thing, he'd get in just by the skin of his teeth. But combine that, I don't think he gets in. And really, take the steroids out, I don't think he was a Hall of Famer. I think it's very close. Where if he gets in, I'm not going to be upset. But if he doesn't get in, I'm also not going to be upset.
See, we talked about how we value peak, how the MLB really values longevity. There's a third thing that we didn't really talk about, and that's postseason play. And if you're going to talk about straight postseason play, then yeah, Andy Pettit's a Hall of Famer. He's got the most wins out of any postseason pitcher. That's an actual stat. So if you wanted to go off of that, then yes, Andy Pettit's
Mhm.
a Hall of Famer. But due to all of that, the steroids, like you just said, even though it was a weird, funky situation, based on his playoff statistics, I think he should be a Hall of Famer. But just with how little time he has left on the ballot, if he does get in, it will be by the skin of his teeth. But I don't. I think he's just gonna slip through the cracks.
Yeah. And then our next guy, this is the last guy who didn't get in. The other two got in, Andrew Jones and Carlos Beltran. We'll get into those. Chase Utley on his third year of the ballot got 59%. And we talked about it when we talked about Pedroia. If you think Pedroia's a Hall of Famer, you think Utley's a Hall of Famer. And I think there's no doubt Chase Utley's a Hall of Famer. One, based on the position he played, second base is kind of a weak position in the sense of them getting into the Hall of Fame. Obviously, you value shortstops more, whatever. But I think Chase Utley's peak from 2007 to 2011 was undeniable. The way he played the game, he was the best Philly on that run. And I don't think it's even relatively close. You could say Ryan Howard, but I think what Chase Utley brought on the defensive side of baseball is unmatched. And then his postseason, he was unbelievable in that '09 World Series run, and even up into that. And it's just, I don't think there's any world where Chase Utley's not a Hall of Famer.
If he's not a Hall of Famer next year, I'll be genuinely surprised. I think this was almost kind of like a testing the waters type thing because Andrew Jones had been on the ballot forever. And the fact that it took him this long to get in is
Yeah.
a travesty. And I'm so glad that he actually did. Same thing with Beltran. He should have gotten in a couple of years ago, if I'm being totally honest. But Utley will be a Hall of Famer. It just really a matter of when the voters really just put that little check mark next to his name. It's coming. It's coming real soon, and I hope it's next year. But we all know how these Hall of Fame voters work.
Yeah, no, Chase is the Hall of Famer, no doubt. And then the next two guys that got in, like you mentioned, Andrew Jones, way too damn long. He got 78% of the vote, so he's in, but it was his ninth year on the ballot. I think what hurt Andrew Jones's Hall of Fame trajectory was his peak was so strong for those 8, 9 years, and then he fell off the cliff. He was a bad baseball player. He was almost unplayable, but it goes back to our point. Peaks matter, and he is the best defensive center fielder of all time. He's an Atlanta Brave. I don't like the Braves, but I know talent when I see talent. And just, dude, the way he would play center field, he would play shallow more than any other center fielder because he knew he could go back on the ball. If you ever played in the outfield, it is much harder to go back on the ball than go in on the ball. But he had the speed and the ability to track a ball like no other, and he was a damn good hitter. The fact that it took this long just shows how the Hall of Fame writers are flawed, not in the sense of the prestige of what to get in, because I think that's good. I think that makes our Hall of Fame better than the other Hall of Fames, but it's the not valuing the absolute peak. So him finally getting in, one took too damn long, but thank God Andrew Jones got in.
Yeah, finally. I really couldn't have said it better myself there. Finally, 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 finally. We're seeing the second generation of Andrew Jones come through too. If you're a Diamondbacks fan, Drew Jones, I don't know how he's been doing in the minors recently, but we're going to see another great defensive outfielder come through. his dad's a Hall of Famer, so maybe he could be on that same type of trajectory. I had so much fun watching Andrew Jones when I was growing up because he was around when I was really young, honestly. Like right as I was really starting to realize what baseball was, Andrew Jones was in that little peak that he had. And yeah, it's kind of funny that they're gonna Hall of Fame voters are making you talk about a Brave and a Met going into the Hall of Fame this year. But both of it, regardless, is completely well deserved. Andrew Jones, like you said, the greatest defensive center fielder to ever do it, one of the greatest center field bats to ever do it. He should have been in at least by year 4 or 5, but it's better late than never. So I'm just glad that they finally got him in.
Yeah, 100%. And then our last guy, Carlos Beltran, got in with 84% of the vote on the fourth year of the ballot. Now, here's the thing. Strictly on the way he played the game, of course, Carlos Beltran is a no doubt Hall of Famer. It's what kind of kept him from not getting in like first ballot was the Astro scandal because he was the mastermind behind it to where it's funny because we talk about the steroid users and all that kind of stuff to where I think they should be in, but this is a tricky situation. Similar to Jose Altuve, why I don't want him in the Hall of Fame is because he was one of the culprits of the worst scandal, I think, in Major League history of like quite literally cheating teams out of a World Series. And for Carlos Beltran to be the guy that brought that over, I mean, I wouldn't be upset if he wasn't in the Hall of Fame because I don't think he's a good person. I think he is quite literally bad for the game of baseball. Similar to like, this might be controversial. I don't think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, not because of his gambling, because I'm an avid gambler myself, dude. I gamble every single freaking day. But if you like look at this, Pete Rose was a terrible human being. Like Pete Rose done some crap, and I'm not going to talk about it on the show, but I'll let you guys do the research. Pete Rose shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Now, Pete Rose and Carlos Beltran, what they did is not even in the same stratosphere of like bad things, but purely on the player, Carlos Beltran deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But also on the fact that if you don't think Jose Altuve should be in the Hall of Fame, which I don't think he should be due to the cheating scandal, I don't think Carlos Beltran should be in the Hall of Fame either. That might be controversial, but that's just my opinion.
See, it's a good thing that a lot of the times they can separate the art from the artist in certain situations like that, because Beltran's play as a player is totally undeniable. And again, I kind of agree with you. It's a bit touchy when it comes to him with the Astro scandal and him being the guy who really orchestrated the whole thing. And yeah, it kind of leaves you with a bit of a rotten taste in your mouth, but I think it really comes down to like, yeah, he may be a bad person in the sense of, oh my God, he cheated. But I think Carlos Beltran is also one of the most loved players to ever do it in terms of whether you wanted to talk about him in Kansas City, whether you want to talk about him in New York, Houston. Everybody loved Carlos Beltran. Nobody really had a bad thing that I've heard to say about Carlos Beltran. And yeah, I think they swept it under the rug just because of the kind of guy that he really is. And when it comes time for Jose Altuve to get in, they're going to do the exact same thing. They're going to sweep all of that under the rug just because of how good of a guy Jose Altuve is, and he's going to get in probably in his third or fourth year on the ballot. But either way, both of these guys deserve to get in. Even if the Astros cheating scandal never happened, Beltran may have been in on the first year of his eligibility to get in. Who knows? At the end of the day, unfortunately, it did happen. We're gonna have to have a conversation about Pete Rose because you're dead wrong. But at the end of the day, like
Well, that goes to the point where you're separating the person from like the player on the field. Like, if you think based on a statistic you should be in the Hall of Fame, absolutely. I just personally think it just comes to the point, like you said, separating the artist from the art. Like, it's just a matter of opinion, and I kind of hold what you do off the field to a pretty high standard. But I also understand your point of like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the guys who got in deserve to get into the Hall of Fame. The guys who were sniffing it this year probably should have gotten into the Hall of Fame with an exception of maybe one or two guys that we talked about. And then all the guys that aren't going to be on the ballot next year, again, disappointing for some of them. But at the end of the day, overall, not the most surprising thing I've seen in terms of Hall of Fames. But Owen, I think they got it right in terms of where the votes were a good portion of this one anyway.
Yeah, no, and I agree, right? Like I of course can have my opinion on Beltron due to other circumstances, but I think going through the list, we agreed on almost every single one. And that'll do it for this episode, but I hope this gave you guys that might not know about the Hall of Fame a little like introspective on what it is. I think it's the greatest Hall of Fame. Of course, does it have its flaws like any other system? Absolutely. But the Baseball Hall of Fame is a prestige honor. You would love to get as many players in as possible that are deserving, and I think for the most part they do. We'll do a whole other episode about the steroid era, all that kind of stuff. But no, this was fun, Ryan. So that'll do it for this episode of Baseball for Maniacs, and we'll catch you guys sometime. Well, I'll do an episode tomorrow. I think you're going to do one tonight. So there's always going to be content flowing out.
Always and forever content from the Maniacs. And guys, real quick, we're running a little short on time, but I wanted to say, Owen said it on the TikTok, but right here, thank you guys so much. We just hit 100 subscribers on the YouTube page. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We don't get to the position that we're in without you. We don't get to talk to Jack Fritz without you. We don't get to talk to Sheffield Shuffler without you. And we don't get to continue pumping stuff out without you guys. So again, thank you for 100 subscribers, and we can't wait to show you what we got cooking. But like Owen said, we will catch you guys on the next one.
I'll see you, buddy.
Later, buddy.